Hello and welcome. I'm Amritanshu Rai and you're watching Law of the Land on Sabha TV. Today we bring to you the mobile radiation regulation policy of the Ministry of Telecommunication. It sets up permissible limits of mobile radiation. To discuss the issue, I have with me Mr. R.K. Bhatnagar, Advisor, Technology, Department of Telecommunications, Mr. Rajan S. Matthews, Director General, Cellular Operators Association of India, and Dr. R.S. Sharma, Deputy Director General, Indian Council of Medical Research, ICMR. Now for the headlines. The regulation imposes several approvals to be obtained by service providers. It states that non-compliance of the regulation will lead to penalty of 5 lakh rupees per tower. And the Interministerial Committee report says that mobile radiation impacts health. It will now be mandatory for service providers to obtain a no objection certificate from the building owner before installing telecom towers. The mobile radiation regulation policy also aims to reduce the electromagnetic field radiation by 1/10 of the present radiation level. Non-compliance of the prescribed standards will lead to a penalty of 5 lakh rupees per mobile tower.
There has been a growing concern that the rising risk of cancer is related to the radiation emitted from mobile phone towers. Addressing this concern, the government has issued strict guidelines to curb the emissions generated from the mobile phone towers and mobile phone, which has been implemented from 1st September. These cell phones and telecom towers have seen such a growth that they have now become part of the landscape of the country. Every second person in the country now owns a mobile, and the total number of cell phones is more than 50 crore. There are close to 6 lakh mobile towers to meet the communication demand. The operation has been happening with weak regulation, but now the government intends to regulate the sector. According to the new guidelines of the government, service providers will have to reduce the electromagnetic field (EMF) radiation to 1/10 of the existing level. All the new mobile handsets will have to comply with the new body standard absorption rates are of 1.6 watt per kg over 1 gram of human tissue. The mobile handsets with existing designs which are compliant with 2.0 watt per kg over 10 gram of human tissue will be allowed to continue only till the 31st August 2013.
The radiation which emanates from mobile towers etc. is a continuous process. Radiation which is caused by all equipment which uses electromagnetic waves depends on the usage. For example, the cell phone will radiate electromagnetic waves only when you use it.
Let's look at the safety clearances that the service providers will now require before installing mobile towers. They will have to get an access service license from the telecom department, a clearance on aviation hazards, obstruction to the existing networks, and certificate of compatibility of the network to other existing networks will have to be taken from the Standing Advisory Committee on Frequency Allocation (SAFCA). Clearances from Pollution Control Board, Fire Safety Department, State Environment Board, and a no objection certificate from the building owner will also be required. In order to ensure safety of buildings, the service provider has to get a Structural Stability Certificate (SSC). In case of rooftop BTS towers, the Structural Stability Certificate (SSC) will have to be approved by authorized Chartered Structural Engineer, Central Building Research Institute (CBRI), Roorkee, or any reputed engineering college.
If they operate DG sets during night hours, then obviously noise would be there and some air pollution would also be there. So there we have an order which says that no mobile tower should operate their DG set between 10 PM to 6 AM in the morning.
The Telecom Enforcement Resource and Monitoring Cell has been given the mandate to keep a check on the electromagnetic field limit. The cell can carry out test audit on random basis or act upon a public complaint. All mobile tower site details will also have to be registered with it. Non-compliance of the standards will result in a penalty of 5 lakh rupees for each mobile tower.
What will be the implication of it on the industry? So you are there with the government, you're the advisor to the government on such matters. Was there ever an attempt made to ascertain that one sector which was really growing well could be impacted because of certain regulations being brought in?
You see, as far as the impact on the industry is concerned, there will not be too much major impact on the industry. Because that what has actually happened, that the safety limits have been changed. So the standards have become more stringent. But even there, earlier also, there was a lot of flexibility was available. We have done a study on sample representative data. We have prepared a program, software. We try to feed in the actual field data on that. And on the basis of that, we analyzed that in the worst telecom circle also, the effect will be less than 5% of the towers. For some of the circles, it could be as low as just 1% of the towers. Rest of the towers are likely to be compliant. And I have the initial feedback also in some of the circles. We have already got the inputs from the industry that they are 100% compliant. For some of the telecom circles, we have already got the input. Now, the same set of the operators earlier, when the policy was earlier based on the expert committee report, for which Mr. Sharma was also one of the members. So at that time, the government wanted to implement that from 1st of April. But the industry was at that stage was saying that the impact is going to be very, very high. As many as 30 to 40% of the towers may get affected. And there will be huge economical effect is going to be impact is going to be there. Lot of additional capital expenditure, etc., will be required to be done by the industry. But that really, after we did the study, we analyzed based on the data available from the field unit, we came to a conclusion that it can be just range from 1 to 5%. That was our conclusion, and you're quite firm on that. And once we said that nothing doing, it has to be implemented from 1st of September. At the same time, the same industry people in their submission, their 40% level came down to 5%.
Okay, so basically, that you've got a straight answer why it happened and why now. But I would not like you to respond to him, but I would like you to tell us what is going to be the impact on the services that we enjoy.
Mr. Roy, let me, clarify a point in terms of the April versus the September. If you recall, the deadline for the handset compliance was September 1, and the compliance for the network was April 1st. Obviously, yes, we did raise the issue of what it would be in terms of the impact. And of course, we do theoreticals, right? We don't have the benefit of actuals. We have, 500,000 towers. So yes, a preliminary indication indicated the extent of the issue. Now, in April, we also raised the issue that the handset and the tower cannot be independently coordinated, because when the cell tower power goes up, the handset power goes down, and vice versa. So this has to be done in conjunction, and we basically said, please allow both of those dates to be coterminous as of September 1.
On the points, there was one aspect. It was a fairly detailed report that you gave. But there was one aspect which was absolutely not clear and could not, it required much more in-depth understanding. The impact on the environment.
See, in this report, there was in this committee, interministerial committee, there was a representative from Ministry of Environment and Forest, and they have given this enough sufficient data in this part also. So, for my view is concerned, impact on health of these radiations, which we have already given to them.
Okay, and but you've clearly said that it has no impact on cancer. You've also said clearly that what is the actual term used by them, Mr. Matthews?
Right, there's no conclusive evidence, right, that any of this emissions from our towers or handset has any impact on health.
No.
If you've said that, then the entire regulation, the way it has been designed, is it really required?
No. You see, the sentence, how you are explaining, or Mr. Matthews explains, is not fully correct. We have mentioned that there is no conclusive evidence based on the existing review of literature that these radiations have got impact on human health. But these existing data available does indicate that yes, there may be possible biological impact on the human body. And based on these type of recommendation, the WHO has identified this radiation, radio frequency radiation, as to be carcinogen. To be carcinogen means that there are enough or sufficient data available on animals which indicate that there is a impact of this radiation on the biological system and health. But there is no sufficient data on human which indicate that this impact is there. Now the issue comes here that why it is so. I have collected information which I would like to bring to the public
Notice
also.
of the view. Yeah.
That this one of the review which was published in 2000, I think 6 or 7, which was one of the UK based research laboratory. They collected the data from 307 studies. These 307 studies, out of these studies, around 93 studies were conducted by industry funded, and around 214 studies were conducted by non-industry funded, means the government or public funded. Now, the industry funded study, the majority of the studies, that is 71% of the industry funded studies say that there is no any impact, whereas the 29% studies say there is an impact. On the other side, from the public studies, the 69% study says that there is impact, and 31% study says there is no impact.
So now, basically it is like kind of looking at a glass which is half full. One says it's half full, the other says it's half empty.
Now another point which I would like to, when I review this whole literature, then I noticed that why this difference of opinion, why the scientists are not able to draw their conclusion, because of it is a very complicated subject. It is very difficult to design a perfect study to reach a conclusion, yes, this is a effect is because of this region. Because environment is involved, the health factor is involved, the lifestyle is also involved. There are so many other factors also.
I get it, sir. It's time for us to head into a break. When we return, we will talk about Inter-Ministerial Committee report on impact on mobiles. Welcome back. The Inter-Ministerial Committee report on impact of mobiles could not establish a direct link between cancer and mobile radiation. But the committee has accepted that radiation causes certain medical conditions. The committee also recorded that towers may be the reason for the vanishing butterflies, bees, insects and sparrows.
The Inter-Ministerial Committee on Mobile Radiation has found that microwave radiation has an impact on the health of the users. The report says that radiation increases body temperature. Exposure to low-level emissions and mobile handset causes burning and tingling sensation on the skin of the head. It causes fatigue, sleep disturbance, dizziness, lack of concentration, loss of memory, disturbance in digestive system and heart palpitation. The report also says that cell phone towers may be the reasons for the vanishing butterflies, bees, insects and sparrows. But the committee has not found a direct link between cancer and radiation.
Although anybody who can afford it tends to change the handset every 2 years or 3 years. So therefore, all the headphones, the handphones that come now, mobile phones, instruments that will be coming up now in market after September 2013 would be compliant, because the companies are obliged to bring in sets like that, and they can't make an excuse that the time wasn't adequate for them to switch on.
Let's look at the important recommendations of the committee. It has suggested use of low-power microcells and inbuilt solutions which emit less radiation. It has proposed the use of distributed antenna system which will enhance coverage and reduce power for towers. It also recommends neutral antenna host system which can be used by all service providers. It has also advised against installation of base station antennas in narrow lanes to reduce natural disaster risks. It has advised against installation of base station towers near schools, colleges and hospitals.
Basically, problem in environmental matters is, or human health matters is, you don't look at the place where you are going to have a particular equipment or anything which is going to disturb the human health or environment concerned. thermal power stations or so many other things. You know, citation is the most important thing. So once you decide, for example, in a master plan, you can decide this is the place where we can have a mobile tower with a particular standard.
The committee has recommended precautionary measures to be taken for the use of mobile phones. It has suggested that children should not use mobile phones and people with medical implants should keep mobile phones at least 15 cm away from the implant. GSM technology uses picocell base stations which emit less radiation. They cover small areas, but with large connectivity, they will not only be energy efficient but will also increase the life of the battery cells. With camera person Rajdeep, Subina Roy, Rajya Sabha TV.
No direct link to cancer, but it does lead to certain medical conditions. Very right. All the list, Dr. Saab, that we saw,
yes,
that the report of which you are part, a member of, it lists out a whole lot of medical conditions. Tingling, this, that, but there is no specific impact. Based on that, I mean, all the symptoms that we saw, does it actually lead to something?
No, these all are the symptoms. Like if there is a psychological disturbance, there are reports which are clearly indicated that in children, especially those children who are exposed to these radiation as cell phone, when they grown up, their behavior is different. They are psychologically disturbed. The neurological disorder, sleeping disturbance, because these symptoms lead to further different type of diseases. If a child exposed to these radiation since childhood, when he grown up, certainly he or she may develop a neurological disorders. Now, so far the cancer is concerned, though we have mentioned, but in our report there is no direct link, but now there are some studies have clearly indicated, even in the somewhere back 2002, one of the study which was published in France or Israel report is very, very important, which I noticed in that. They have clearly indicated that the study indicate an association between increased incidence of cancer and living proximity to the cell phone tower. So, it is not like that there is no, but you see, when we draw any conclusion, then we need more evidence.
And but we are in the process of getting evidence. I'll come to you. Now, see, your response, I know, sir, but I'll ask you very clearly. Your idea of the business is on profit and losses. But to what extent do you actually agree with the recommendations made by them? That is, you reduce radiation, you comply with certain benchmarks because this is what is happening to our people. This is what is happening to the sparrows, to the butterflies. Why is there a resistance to going this way and sticking only to the profit and loss?
Mr. Rai, I think the statement that we only stick to profit and loss is inaccurate and erroneous, because if we destroy the health of our citizens, there's no business for us in the long run. All right, we would hurt ourselves, much as the tobacco industry found out, or any other industry which did not take care of the health of its citizens. We were the first ones to talk to the DOT about coming up with appropriate guidelines in 2008, and we work very closely with the DOT on this matter. All right, we continue to work with them, and we have said we will voluntarily comply. Now, let me make just two particular facts. All right, the point that we are saying is that we are willing to abide by any scientifically based study, because all of us can have conjectures and opinions and points of view. Now, let me give you a practical example. I suffer from seasonal pollen allergy, all right? So it could be quite possible that there are people who are hypersensitive to electromagnetic frequency and perhaps experience some of that. But because I suffer from a seasonal allergy does not mean I go out and cut down every tree in the vicinity that generates the pollen. I take specific interventions to make sure. So that being said, this whole issue of sparrows and bees, again, scientific studies have again come from the government, no less, which says that sparrows are extinct or going away from our urban areas because of their habitation issues.
Have you done your own study, or have you come to a contrary point of view?
No, we have not. We have basically said, look, we have said, please.
Do you have a study?
Yes, we have not done independent studies.
Why?
Because nobody believes us. This is exactly what Dr. Sharma said. Every time we do a study, we say, oh, what's, which is why the Prime Minister's office has called the DST to start a scientifically based intervention to determine what are the facts and figments of these accusations. And we promote that and we support that, and that is our only point with the DOT. We said, please.
I get it. I'll get Mr. Bhatnagar in. Mr. Bhatnagar, has the service provider or the entire, all the service providers put together, ever come to the government and say that we will sponsor, we will spend the money, you get this survey done and come with an objective point of view in public interest?
Not to my knowledge, but I would like to point out one particular aspect. You see, as far as the birds and that part is concerned, I will just try to tell one technical issue.
Yeah.
Say, for example, this is a tower.
Right.
And at a height of, say, 20 meters, there's an antenna is there.
Yes.
So, as far as the effect of the radiation is concerned, it is parallel to the, because the signal is getting radiated at a level almost parallel to the ground with a small inclination of about 3 degrees or so.
Right.
So what actually happening, you see, there is an exclusion zone of, earlier it used to be about 20 meters, now it is about 50 to 60 meters. If there is any other building just opposite in a distance of 50, 60 meters, and then there can be possibility of exposure. But that also, you are not radiating in all the directions. It depends on the configuration of the antenna, the angles and all that. So that is required to be seen. Now, as far as the birds are concerned, so you see, any bird, if it is flying in the affected area, then only it can get affected. What he said about the pesticides and those type of things, that can be correct. So it may be, as far as the butterflies are concerned, as far as the birds are concerned, there can be many other factors which can be responsible for that, not just the radiation.
I get it. Dr. Sharma wants to add something
to
it.
I would like to add here one thing.
Quickly, sir.
Yeah. Einstein, when he was alive, he once mentioned, because he was aware about this electromagnetic radiation and the new science coming up, he mentioned that, or rather he coined a new word, that's colony disrupting syndrome. What is this colony disrupting syndrome? That these honeybees are, their whole navigation is basically dependent on the big type of radiations or electromagnetic radiation. These our new electromagnetic radiation
that gets disrupted.
Therefore, they are not.
That is why it is there in the report. I'll come to you, Mr. Matthew. Time for us to head into a break. When we return, we will show you an interview with Secretary, Delhi Science Forum, D. Raghunandan. Welcome back. My colleague Subina Roy spoke to Mr. D. Raghunandan, Secretary, Delhi Science Forum, tried to get his perspective.
People are scared of radiation from mobile phone and mobile phone towers. So what is this radiation, and is it true that it causes cancer?
See, there are broadly two types of radiation. It's what's called ionizing radiation and the non-ionizing radiation. Ionizing radiation is like X-rays, alpha rays, which can penetrate and affect the cell structure inside the body, which can lead to cancer, which can lead to genetic mutations and so on.
Sir, is the new SAR value of 1.6 watt per kg and the new power standards for BTS towers sufficient to reduce the radiation level?
Our standards are worse than those of Europe, for example. The US uses CDMA mostly, which anyway has a lower profile in terms of its wattage. We use mostly GSM. So we should be comparing ourselves with European standards, and we have traditionally been worse off. My worry is not so much the standards which are set, that is law. We in India are very good at making laws. We are not very good at enforcing.
So basically, the regulation is required, and there is evidence at this point of time that it does cause medical symptoms or certain medical conditions. the point that you were making about safety aspect, what the consumers must know and must ensure so that they are the least affected from radiation. And where can they find them?
Yeah. If we visit the Department of Telecommunication website www.dot.gov.in, so there we'll find a set of the guidelines for the installation of mobile towers. This carries the instructions to the state government so that the national standards, etc., that get the new standards which have been set aside by us, they get implemented and they get full support from the state government. I would like to say that the standards which have been adopted in India, they are most of the toughest standards in the world. We are better off as compared to almost 95% of the country.
On the aspect of the science and the perception, what is the point that you wanted to make?
Mr. Rai, we as an industry are happy to comply with scientifically based standards of impacts on health. What we are concerned about is innuendo, opinion, non-scientifically based factors which place an inordinate burden on the industry, because we are today here, tomorrow there, on what? So we are saying please go through a logical process, a scientific process which looks at all of the factors, all of the impacts. We do it in medicine, we do it in other areas. Let's get accurate in that regard and let's proceed. And the industry is happy to comply. As of today, 95% of our network is already compliant. And so we will expect to continue to improve that. And the health and welfare of our citizens is of our prime concern. As I said, no industry can succeed without that type of a concern.
They're consumers. Okay. On the medical front, you wanted to add some things.
Yeah. As I mentioned that though there is no conclusive evidence, but there is some evidences which clearly indicate that there is a possibility to have an impact. And because of that, so many European countries, they have developed health-based precautionary guidelines, including our neighbor, the China and Italy. You take the Australia, Switzerland. They have developed their health-based precautionary guidelines. They have reduced their exposure level because the indication is there may be a possible impact on that. And therefore, we as a member of the committee, we have also recommended in this country that we must follow the health-based precautionary measurement guidelines, and we must continue to investigate this matter to collect more data. What type of effect is there in this our country, on our people.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for joining us on this discussion. It's time for us to end the show. You can email your suggestions and comments to law.rstv@gmail.com. You can also watch our shows on the YouTube. We'll be back with a new issue and a new episode. Keep watching Rajya Sabha TV.